My father, Gregorio, was a real pilot, and he flew different airplanes in a different time when the technology was not what we have today. When I was 5 years old, as present, he put me on a seat on a G91, which was the Frecce Tricolori, the Italian patrol, and for aerobatic, with no seats in the back of the G91. They put me there, his friends. So, yes, he started young. The other pilot is Gabriel, my son, who is flying since 11 years today, and is captain since a while already, and he flew with me a lot. When he was very young, he was sitting on my right-hand seat, and he was doing the autopilot. He was flying by hand all the time, taking out the autopilot when he was starting from 5, 6 years old.
For me, there was no other choice than when I got 16. I was already flying with him, and he was already something, so it was just a matter of getting it officially done.
It was last year I was the Istanbul Grand Prix Formula One. My son is racing in GP2, and I was there reading the Red Bulletin, which is issued by Red Bull for different scores. When I went home from the Grand Prix in the evening, I went on internet to see what was existing. And I saw the Steve Fossett record with an airplane that was quite recent, was in 2005. And they built, and they means Richard Branson from Virgin, and Steve Fossett, a specific airplane to go around the world. It left from United States and it flew all around the world non-stop, in the wind. 67 hours, I said. 67 hours is a joke. I mean, my Sabre can do a lot better. And then I started to get a look, to go deeper, and to start to speak with Tom in our operation. And it started to take place really in the mind.
I was just doing one of the routine afternoon shifts, so it was maybe around 9 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. And then Riccardo called, you know, I had a crazy idea. Are you alone in the office? It was all about making the circle around the globe. That was the only target, you know. There was something in that idea, you know, which starts to push you immediately, that you cannot switch off and go to sleep. I come up with the first route, basically, which was it simply circled the world. All the sectors were, I think, less than 2,000 miles. It crossed Pacific completely on a different combinations. So I said, yeah, I think it's possible. So here we go.
Thought that was a nice idea to try to go all around the world with my favorite airplane, that is the Sabreliner 65.
The story of the Sabreliner 65, our Sabreliner. So my dad bought it in 1997. He was looking initially to buy a Lear 36, same airplane as Mr. Parner flew around the world. And he was looking at it, and of course, he had already a lot of experience of these Lear jets. And he came to one of his friends and he said, I want to buy a Lear jet. And the guy immediately said, Riccardo, this is not the right airplane, because the Lear jet is very small, is a very small cabin. So for the comfort of the passengers, it is the wrong airplane. It is too small, the Lear jet. But there was the famous Sabre that was having the same performance, the same speed, and more comfort for passengers. So this is how came the decision to buy the Sabre.
An airplane is never old. The Sabreliner 65 is a special airplane. It was one of the first jets what was built after the Second War. Nothing has been done except some electronic improvements, some precision improvements, but the systems are still exactly the same. North American Rockwell, the builder of the Sabre 40, which was the first one, was made the Skylab, the first shuttle to the space, on the base of the Sabre 40. That was enlarged, and after the NASA finished all that, they made a special wing designed by NASA, and they put the new Garrett engines. This was in the 80s. It remains today a wonderful airplane to fly with absolutely wonderful numbers and possibilities.
It works tremendously well because we give the airplane to the factory once or twice a year. Still is a factory a little bit that is looking in the old way of working, based in Perryville, Missouri, and they do an incredible job with the old ways of working, and they have a tremendous experience, and it is always a great enjoyment to bring the airplane there because they know what they're talking about and they love really their product. So we are big fans.
First question about the records, you have no clue where to look. So would you look in a Guinness book? Would you look, I don't know, in what kind of stuff? So for me, I mean, I simply put, okay, flight world records into Google. That's how it went. FIE ended up on the top. Okay, I spoke briefly with the people in the FIE just to see, okay, how it really works, learn a bit about these categories and stuff. Obviously, I mean, throughout the months, you get the idea exactly what kind of requirements you have to fulfill. We saw, okay, there is a minimum distance which has to be flown, but when we started to see that it's not that we can only make the trip around the world, but that we can seriously start to think about records. You have to create the routing, right? So basically we talk about the points which you will then give to the air traffic control. So this is the route which aircraft will fly. In general, this preparation, you can talk, there is a huge amount of time which you can call strategic planning, right? So you're really looking about the winds, about the weather on the different stations. I was lucky enough to find the databases, let's say, for the upper winds for the last 40 years, basically. So that helped me a lot really to see, okay, what would be the best path actually where we can really go to have a good wind. When we talk about complexity, if you look each of these flights by itself, isolated, one would say this is just a routine flight. It's a thing which we do every day. Thing comes to be really complex when you put all of them together, especially then when you come in the areas which you don't really dispatch very often. Just the night before the flight, when I really started to file the live flight plan, so when I start really to send the flight plans to the ATC, you end up amazed that many of these things actually were not straightforward and directly accepted. That night was pretty tough actually, just the day before. So I felt really good when Riccardo came around 6 in the morning. When I was able finally to give all the preparation stuff to him, I felt really good. That was the first part that you say, okay, this part of the job is done. Just before the event, it was very intense. You could actually not allow yourself to make a mistake at that stage. You realize another one, and that obviously comes, you know, the element of responsibility. That's something what has nothing to do with the technical part. 3-4 hours before the takeoff, you're starting to realize, hey, I did this thing, and if it doesn't work, I mean, that would be a bad thing, you know.
The crew members are Flavien Guderzo, who is a very good co-pilot, and he is very accurate, and he is growing up, and he will for sure become a captain.
When I first met Riccardo, it was on my first flight because he was the instructor and the examiner for my type rating on the Sabre.
I'm Adam Hay-Nicholls, a friend of Riccardo's and Gab's. I'm a journalist, and my role on this mission has been doing the PR and that side of things, really. And I'm the observer as of about 12 hours ago. I feel like we're going off on the Apollo mission or something.
Yeah.
I'm just doing some, because we're twittering as well, so I'm trying to, before we take off and lose signal, try and update the world. Oh, hang on.
Have we gotten sponsorship from Apple yet for the iPhone? So.
I just got a message from somebody, you're an animal, good luck.
At 7 a.m. local time in Geneva, we waved goodbye to the throng of photographers and well-wishers to begin our journey. It felt more like we were running for a bus than embarking on a historic flight, as we squeezed onto the plane, luggage everywhere, with about as much room to move as on rush-hour public transport. But as the wheels lifted off the blacktop, a sigh of relief from the cockpit echoed down the aisle. Finally, Riccardo could get on with what he does best and enjoy the moment he'd been planning for 10 months.
The airplane was not well organized inside. It's a small space, and we need to be organized inside like military. Otherwise, we don't have room, we don't find the things, we don't have what we need at the right moment.
The conditions of the plane were a bit of a shock at first, because there are 4 of us in the back here, and it's a real squeeze with the amount of kit that we've got. We didn't really expect to have this much stuff. It seems that we've been given a lot of food, and we might have to try and eat our way out of this. So as we eat, we will get faster. Then Riccardo came in, he's like, there's too much stuff. So the one thing that they took out was Red Bull, which is the one thing that we need.
And how is the right in the back?
It's just a little cramped.
A little?
Cramped.
Cramped?
You know this word? Tight.
Tight.
We're actually 14 minutes ahead of the schedule. What is, as you can see exactly how much they departed. They departed here 16 or 17 minutes ahead of the schedule. They are there 14 minutes ahead of the schedule, which means that the plan was reasonably good. Some operations?
We have more than 50 hours to get excited, so it's better that we keep quiet. We are here at the end of Italy, which is in this area.
Then we go Greece, all the way there, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and all the way to Bahrain. Said probably the main rush will be turnover, stop, fuel, customs. That will get really. Flying is the easy part. Yeah.
Because we'd taken off so early in the morning, a number of people decided to have a bit of a nap on the first leg. The terrain that we flew over to Bahrain was beautiful. You had the olive terrain of Greece, which made way for the deep blue of the Med, and then the featureless sands of a new continent as we made our way to Bahrain.
We left Geneva, and you fly, and this is everything is normal. have to be fast, of course, in flight, but in flight there is not much to do. You have to be fast, of course, in the approach, and you have to be very fast on the ground also. It's a very stressful moment. So I really recall the first time in Bahrain, like I said, we're there, it's time to do it. So let's do that.
Go quickly, please. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, bye.
Our Geneva to Bahrain leg took 5 hours 33 minutes, which the crew described as being reasonably good. They weren't so happy with our getaway time, however. Refueling was sorted in around 12 minutes, but we were delayed by another plane on the runway, which was dumping water. The total time on the ground was 35 minutes, decent by most standards, but we really want to get these early stops quicker because we're expecting delays in Petropavlovsk and Anchorage due to customs and general bureaucracy.
Hey, Saz. So where are we now?
We're in the middle of the Indian Ocean between Bahrain and Colombo.
Are we making good time?
I think we're on the schedule. The only thing is to make a quick turnaround in Colombo because the one in Bahrain was, let's say, average. During this race we had around the world, basically, there were only one way to build the lead. It was to go fast during climbs, fast during descents, and fast in the pit stops.
In order to prevent delays, a lot of paperwork has been going backwards and forwards for months with most of these airports and handlers. So they know that we're coming, they know what we're doing, and relationships have been built. Generally they want us to get away as quickly as possible, and wish us well. The ground crew is pretty critical on this, or very critical in fact, because they're really the ones that are going to make us this record.
During the pit stops, it was the job of Tom to organize everything so that the fuel truck is waiting for us. There was nothing we could do about it, except landing when we land to put some pressure on everybody to get the things quicker.
So they've got to be there primed, ready to get us fueled as quickly as possible, and then critically give us clearance to take off as fast as possible, which is dependent largely on how much traffic there is, and that's why we used Colombo rather than, say, an airport on mainland India, because this was a bit smaller and there's less traffic and we could get away. And they were expecting us, they knew exactly what we were doing, and the welcome was as warm as the weather was. So obviously we're crossing quite a few time zones doing this, and as we're heading east, we're sort of heading into the night, if you will. It's pitch black outside, has been for a couple of hours now, and by the time we're ready to have a bit of a snooze, chances are it'll be bright sunshine outside. So yeah, it's going to perhaps play with the body clock a little bit, but I think that the best thing to do is just to stay on Geneva time, and then obviously walk around like zombies when we're getting refueled. So at each stop, I've been turning on my phone onto roaming when I got signal again, to try and, we're doing blogs and stuff, so I've been doing it for the website, and obviously I get deluged with emails that have been coming in, and just had one here which is from a PR lady who's promoting us in Las Vegas. There are plans afoot to try and have the mayor come and greet us and have a whole hoopla around it, which would be fun, although Riccardo doesn't really give a shit about that and basically just wants to get on the road. But one of the things that she just emailed me about was billionaires. Can you put a paying passenger on the plane? And then she's given me a whole list of wealthy people and John Travolta. And now I'm not quite sure of the rules and whether we can actually we can take people off the plane, we can kick them off, but I'm not quite sure of the rules of taking them on. I have a feeling that it's against the rules. I'll go and check, but I have a feeling that Riccardo won't really react well to this. So, but I'm gonna enjoy asking him. Yeah, it would be nice to have John Travolta on the plane, but unless he can move very, very, very fast across the runway, like in 30 seconds, then I don't think it's going to happen.
Fuel. Fuel. Yeah. Fuel is late.
Yes, we know that, but they said they're on the way.
Don't worry, they're coming.
So we've landed in Macau, and the fuel truck was a little bit late. So there was some phone calls made back to the operations base in Geneva, and I've no idea what time in the morning it is here. I can tell you what time it is in Geneva. It's just gone midnight in Geneva.
Fuel is very late. You have called them?
Yes, we'll call him
Yeah,
again.
they're coming very soon.
Sors un peu le portable. Ici, on a tout bouffé. Il n'y a pas le fuel. When we arrived in Macau, and there is only the Chinese lady that is there. The fuel is coming. The fuel is coming. I say, no, I don't want the fuel is coming. I need the fuel truck now. Is something important. We don't want. Maybe you can lose. To my experience, you can lose 5 minutes to 10 hours. It happened to me waiting the fuel truck 10 hours because there was a strike or whatever. You don't know, it's not there. So you're facing a delay and you don't know how long it will last. And you're attempting to break the world record of velocity, of speed. And you don't have the guy there, so of course you're frustrated.
For the fuel, we don't go anywhere.
Sorry. They're still asking for the fuel.
It's on the way, sir. It's right there.
Oh, they're the one. The car already came.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they knew that we were coming, so they were a bit slow. But what can you do? And the fuel truck showed up maybe about 10 minutes late. We got time in the pocket, so you know it's not the end of the world.
Yes, finally we got it, but shit fucking lost time 10 minutes here. So because we started really to scream a little bit and it made some good effect. Yes.
Okay.
Everybody inside?
Yeah, all present.
Suis sur le frein.
It was my first time in Japan. I've never been in Japan. The landing was tremendous. There was plenty of wind. There was 35 knots. It was bumping, shaking. It was. I didn't expect that. Japan was great, and Japanese people all around rushing. It was really. They're great people, really. Very efficient because you see a lot of these people running all the time, and the job is done, and was nearly the fastest stop. So. It was wonderful.
Showing 150, Roger, pass behind the tri-jet, taxi 12.
Of course, we are feeling the pressure of the clock. It's definitely on the pit stops. We feel definitely that time is flying and we should really run, ask clearance, control fuel. It is a lot of pressure. Flight time wise, we're perfectly ahead, and we have been always 10 minutes ahead on each schedule. So you can count that we are ahead of 1 hour now, this moment. And also with the pit stops, we have been always doing 10 minutes less. So you can say that we are roughly 2 hours less. We're not talking about the record of Steve Fossett that for the moment, as far as I see, we're going to beat it. But we are talking about the record of Mr. Palmer. This is the second record that we are trying to outbeat, and then definitely will be the fastest. Biggest concern in this moment will be Russian customs, Russian pit stop, American customs. The American pit stop will be very fast, I guess, so that's not really a big problem, but it's really to clear customs in Russia and in America. And these are the 2 points where maybe we can lose 1 hour, I don't know. It can happen. Through the past, I've been losing one time even 4 hours in Bangor, in Maine. So maybe maybe we can lose a lot of time. I don't know. We're going to Petropavlovsk, Adam, and unfortunately there Russian authority doesn't allow to film or to take any pictures or to record any film. So unfortunately this has to stay on board. And yeah, sorry for the documentary. We have to stop filming here. This is how they want it.
Petropavlovsk is surrounded by volcanoes, inaccessible by road, and there are bears. Sea became ice and then fields covered in a spotless film of snow. The houses are a mixture of cream-coloured Soviet tower blocks and wooden shacks with blue and green roofs. The airport is practically lifeless, but aging cargo planes are parked at every turn like they're hiding. 3 customs officials approach our plane. We're instructed we cannot leave the aircraft. They study our passports carefully as the fuel truck is sent for. No photos, we're warned. If the Cold War is over, this northeastern outpost of Mother Russia didn't get the memo.
Petropavlovsk for me was the nicest place of all this trip. It was very, very nice, the volcans, it was very nice, the nature around. And after when we left, we saw on the left of the airplane many volcans, mountains very, very high. I live in Switzerland, and we think that Mont Blanc is the best mountain in the world. It isn't, because all around the world there are a lot of mountains higher than Mont Blanc.
There was a sense as we were landing in the US that we'd kind of broken the back on the mission. You know, it was more or less the halfway point. We couldn't film. We had to get off the plane. We had to get in a minibus and drive to the terminal and get our passports stamped. The Department of Homeland Security officials went through the plane to make sure we weren't carrying anything we shouldn't do. They should have been looking for firearms, illegal aliens or whatever. In fact, they seem to be looking for ham. Ham was the main issue there. So we had about 300 euros worth of prosciutto chucked in a bin, which I personally got quite upset about, and only calmed down when they showed up with some replacement food.
Arrival in Las Vegas. Sabreliner, Sabre cap, Sabre jacket, Sabreliner.
Vegas was going to be quite an interesting stop for us because there was we knew that there were going to be some American television media coming to cover us. I got a text saying that the mayor of Las Vegas was going to come along, and he'd be bringing Tina Turner, and that she was going to present us with the key to the city. I thought I'd believe it when I see it. And when we got to Vegas, Riccardo and Flavian and Gab were actually busy changing the oil on the engines. So I went into the terminal building where the camera crews were, and was greeted by a 6.5-foot Tina Turner. Turns out that Tina's name is Larry, and wasn't exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah, sure.
And poor old Riccardo looked a bit shell-shocked, I think.
Yeah. And I have the key to the city, actually, of Las Vegas. I just want to welcome you here to Las Vegas. I'm Larry Edwards with the Divas Show at the Imperial Palace. I just want to invite you here to Las Vegas.
There was a very quick press conference. Somebody asked, Riccardo, where are you going next? As in, Montreal. To which he replied, I'm going to the bathroom.
Wondering how the flight is going.
Everything is going perfectly up to now. We will see the end.
Are you guys ahead of schedule?
A little bit, yes.
Are you going
But
to
we have to continue to be ahead, so we got to go.
Il va faire l'interview avec Tina. Le record, c'est fini, hein? Le record. Time to go.
We parked up our plane right next to Larry Flint's jet, which was black with gold stripe and a topless bird on the back. So that was a pretty Vegas welcome. When we got to Montreal, there was a bit of a welcome committee because the story of our flight had gone out on local radio, and so many people showed up in the little VIP terminal that we landed next to come and take pictures. And so we took Riccardo in there to go and say hi, and he was very, very pleased to see them. I think he was a bit embarrassed, but he was also, I think he got a real kick out of it. We took off from Montreal in the evening. A couple of hours in, I took the opportunity to have a bit of a sleep, and I think we all did actually, apart from the pilots. And I woke up when Flavian was doing that on my shoulder and said, "Riccardo wants to see you." So I went up to the cockpit.
Suddenly I hear a little bit of sounds, and unusual sounds, because you always hear the radio and you know everything is normal, but start to see lights because you're in the dark. You're really in the dark. You must imagine you don't see anything, and you're in the cockpit just with the cockpit lights, and you don't have anything. So suddenly Riccardo lights on the cockpit.
Riccardo says, "It's over." I'm like, "What?" He says, "There's a volcano in Iceland." I'm like, you've got to be having a joke, you know, this can't be serious. And sure enough, he was serious. He was like, you know, it's all over. The airports in Iceland are all shut because of this volcano.
Around 4 o'clock in the morning, the volcano on Iceland erupted, first time in 2 centuries. Riccardo said in his 35 years that he is flying, that volcano was never an issue over the Atlantic, and I think he crossed it, if it's not 1,000 times, it's nothing. So that's absolutely the case.
Basically the most unexpected thing that could happen, and it happened.
You start to hear Iceland closed.
I think we all started to feel quite tense.
You're on your own, really, and you feel that, and you know that.
Then, of course, the roller coaster starts.
Safety first in the airplanes. I mean, you do a mistake, you die. This is really what happened.
One of the biggest deals in making this mission is to listen to unforeseen.
We started to calculate all the distances to go Greenland, to go Shannon, to go Canada. This no, this no, this no, this I don't like.
If we go to Shannon and then to Casablanca, the trip is going to be too short.
Goose Bay we know very well. We've been there for many years. I called immediately Tom, and Tom knew already that we were on the way to Goose Bay.
It looks like Arnold Palmer's record is out of our grasp.
We shut off the engine and say, what next now?
Gab and Riccardo really leapt into action. We went into this little lounge office, which is kind of weird because it looked like a corrugated iron shed, and you go inside and it's like you're in a manor house with, you know, like plush sofas and TVs and loads of pictures of celebrities on the walls, like loads of pictures of, you know, loads of A-listers with Gulf Streams and stuff like that, which is kind of funny.
When Gabriel called, you know, I was not really sure at that moment, are they going to continue or not?
He started to say, I know that you must be tired and disappointed and all that, and probably he was also speaking for himself.
It was a huge blow even for me, so I can imagine how frustrating it would be for the crew.
It's more frustrating for the pilots. I mean, for me, it's a twist of the story. You know?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's only a guess. Probably they were still open.
So we forget it.
We forget.
Okay.
I suppose we're all also feeling quite lucky that we got the call from air traffic control when we did, because if we'd gone further, if we got further to Iceland and been presented with this sort of fait accompli, it could have ended quite badly because there's nowhere else around there that one can land.
How far away were we from Keflavik when we found out?
Okay.
An hour and a half, even less.
And there's no airport around there?
We didn't have enough to go to Ireland.
For another 2 hours?
It was very risky. It was probably close to zero. Very, very risky.
What, getting back here, zero on the fuel tank?
No, here was the same distance. We were exactly the same distance from here than from Keflavik.
Right in the middle.
We are still motivated by the goal to beat the Virgin Global Flyer of Steve Fossett. So for this one, we are still in the race.
Personally, I have been very lucky to be in this situation in a zone that I know perfectly. You have to add Montreal Goose Bay, as it was a direct line, and then Goose Bay Shannon, Shannon Casablanca, Casablanca Geneva.
When you hear the crew and such a dedication to continue, there is no discussion that you will do whatever you can to have them in the air, and that was really reasonably good one.
Tom, we are already refueling. You know that we are quick. We proved you.
Once he said he refueling, the only question is where we go.
0430, perfect. 20 minutes is fine. Where do we go? Where do we go, Tom?
We would proceed from Shannon, 20 minutes turnaround to Marrakech, and after that, Marrakech to Geneva.
Shannon, Casa Geneva. We are on the way again, and I don't know how, because this is tremendous, because we have changed everything, and Tom is really a great help for that to change in a short moment.
Thank you very much, madam. You are very kind. Thank you, madam. Bye-bye. No, she said it's policy to inform 2 hours in advance, but as it is an emergency, we can go. So it's
really,
fine.
This is also what I understood, but she
it's
didn't
fine.
confirm.
She told it's okay because it's an emergency, but it's a normal policy to give.
Yeah.
So
I do normal policy, yeah.
yeah, but she said as it is an emergency, you can go.
Okay.
So we are okay.
Okay.
We don't go to jail. Thank you.
Nobody had any intention of giving up, and we had so much time in our pocket over Steve Fossett's record of 67 hours, 1 minute, that even with the volcano, and the volcano probably cost us close to 5 hours, even with the volcano, we were still on course for beating his record, beating his time. So we continued, and we got to Shannon safely and had a very fast turnaround there. We got away from Shannon in about 24 minutes.
So how are we doing on time now?
So the figures are pretty bad because of this unexpected fuel stop in Goose Bay. We lost quite a lot of time, so now we are still running for the record of Steve Fossett, the 67 hours. But most likely we will not be able to make it for the record of Palmer of 57 hours.
The flight time to Marrakech was much better than expected because we had tailwinds. Suddenly, it was back on because we were getting close. We weren't that far off from Arnold Palmer's record.
So we've been flying about 52 hours. So we've got 3 hours and a half to go down to Marrakech. That makes it 55:30. Yeah. If we make a 30 minutes turnaround, that's going to give us 56 hours. And it's going to be, I think, 2 hours 30 to go back to Geneva. So it's going to be something like 58:30 to 59 hours.
So we're an hour behind Palma.
Yeah.
On commence à prendre le plan de vol et puis on regarde. Faut se réveiller, donne-moi la carte.
So, Captain, tell me, what do you think?
I don't think I rush.
No rush?
No, I don't think I have to rush.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Because we are becoming very close, even with the problem that we had this night. So it's really question of minutes now. So this the decision will be made by the stop here in Marrakech.
So basically, we have started our descent to Marrakech, and so we have some slightly good news. Basically, we've had less headwind than expected, so we could be in a shape to beat Palma still. So we are descending now. We shall be on the ground within 20 minutes. We left Geneva 54 hours and 22 minutes ago. And so then everything is going to depend on the turnaround time in Marrakech.
We landed in Marrakech, and just like in Macau, there was no fuel truck.
C'est un peu encombré.
Oui, mais c'est pour ça qu'on vous a téléphoné avant.
On les a appelés, ils arrivent, monsieur.
Non, ils n'arrivent pas.
Ils arrivent, monsieur. Ils arrivent, s'il vous plaît. Vous patientez un petit peu. Parce que
non, je patiente pas.
Because the heat was really on, I think, well, I was jumping up and down.
Ah, fanculo. 2800 litres.
This is not good. This is not good. We've got it means basically we've got to get all the fuel in this plane that we need in, I reckon, well, we've got about 10 minutes to get the fuel in here and be up in the air.
No, parce que... 2800 litres. 2400, pardon.
Where's the fuel truck? Where's the fuel truck? It turned up sort of 10 minutes late, and I don't know if they were joking, but Riccardo did say that he'd sort of bunged somebody a couple of quid so that they'd get it over fast.
Palm Air Aviation. Is that a sign? Palm Air, Palm Air?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign.
The chances of us beating Palmer's record at this stage was very, very slim. There was about 15 minutes in it, and we needed a super, super quick pit stop.
Le meilleur stop qu'on a fait, c'est 22 minutes du toucher des roues au décollage.
We're still in the game. When we got here, the fuel truck wasn't ready. That cost us 5 minutes. Could be critical. We're going to run this Arnold Palmer record to within 5 minutes either way, I reckon. We just got to think positively. And we've got to hope that we get our wheels up in the next couple of minutes. I mean, the engines are running. We've got to go. We've got to go. If we're in Marrakech for any more than about 25 minutes, I think it's going to be really, really tight.
So what was our time count? What happened?
It's about 30 minutes. Didn't help that the fuel truck took 6 minutes to turn up. The fuel went in pretty quickly because we haven't brimmed the tanks, because Geneva is not that far. And but then on the runway we were sat behind a commercial plane, sat there for 3 minutes, and the whole stop took about 30 minutes. We really are running this close, like, yeah, 10 minutes in it. I mean, that
So the wind's going to make all the difference.
the wind is going to make it or break it.
Descend to flight level 110.
Descend flight level 110, Victor Chan, remember. Elle m'a dit, c'est fait, il faut aller plus vite pour le record du monde, et elle m'a dit une connerie comme ça, j'ai dit non, pas besoin, c'est déjà fait.
Okay, they are now 6 miles from touchdown. We've been in the race until the end.
Flying into Geneva, Everybody was absolutely elated, exhausted. It's that kind of feeling that you get when you've done something really incredible and you're exhausted, but you've got this great team spirit. And everybody was ready for a glass of champagne.
When I saw the aircraft actually approaching, that this 50+ hours is finally, business is done, you know, that kind of feeling of a great relief.
Suddenly the lady at the air traffic control say, what about the world record? And I say, it's done, it's in the pocket, we did it.
Yes, it ended exactly on the place where we started. No matter what was happening in between, you just know that basically the mission is done. What we wanted to do, we accomplished definitely.
Say, I'm at home. Then we landed here in Geneva.
Even proved that in very difficult conditions, in completely unpredictable environment, we are still capable to perform just up to the top. That's exactly what we did.
The idea was very nice because doing that with a 30-year-old plane, and it was in a way amazing because today you can do that with every new plane. It's not a difficult issue, but this was quite amazing to do that and to try to make the world tour like that was a good idea.
And then the mess started because you see the fire trucks there facing each other, and after they start to throw the water over, and it creates a very nice arc. It's like a shower, and you're passing. It was a wonderful moment.
All these TV crews that descended on Riccardo, but he didn't want to leave his plane. I physically had to drag him into the minibus and go to the terminal and do a little press conference. But it had become a fantastic story because not only had we broken the record that we'd gone out to set, but obviously this whole subtext of this subplot about Riccardo versus the volcano.
I first see Riccardo, of course, still in the cockpit when he was asking for the chocks, you know, to be put, which were not there in the place, basically.
Don't be surprised that I was asking for the chocks. We didn't have any more breakfast.
I know, you said it. I know that.
And then we stopped the airplanes and all the journalists were there. And the champagne, Riccardo was a little bit embarrassed with the champagne in his hands. And as we have a lot of experience with my brother, with Edo, and we see how he does when he wins to take the champagne on every journalist, so I took it, and it was very instinctive. In Macau, my brother won the World Championship in F3 3 months ago, and I've been there many times, and I mean, it's 3 years already that we go because he was vice champion 2 years ago, and we have always followed him, and you're going there, same city, and you say, wow, Edo won there, but I am the fastest around the world. So you immediately make some comparison in your mind, and then you say, this was really great for me, and it was a great feeling. To fly 60 hours together and to beat the world record is, you cannot even describe. It's one time in your life, and it's with the guy that you love the most. So yeah, it's bringing a lot of emotions.